Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to episode 11 of That Moment Heart to Heart Talk with Victoria. And today I'm talking to Sarah Gaines, one of my amazing friends. And before I introduce her, I just want to introduce the show. This is the 11th episode, and the whole premise of this show is really highlighting amazing, incredible contributors in the world and their stories of growth through struggles and how they got to the other side and how they've thrived. And so I'm so excited to have Sarah here today. To me, Sarah, you are light and magic and stardust and all sorts of just goodness. Whenever I see you, talk to you, from the first moment I met you at the retreat on New Year's, I just was magnetized towards you. And so I'm so happy to have you on because you have such a powerful message. Tell everybody who you are in this world. Share.
Hello, everybody. And thank you, Victoria. It's always such a pleasure to have these conversations and be in your presence. And I'm really excited to have this conversation today. I am a writer, a healer, a guide, a teacher, all around self-love, positive, healthy living, joyful well-being, and ultimately all of that being to living the life that feels so authentically yours. And for me, I got started in fitness. I had created a community for college students all around healthy living in college, and it's kind of evolved, moving really from the physical body to more of our emotional body, our mental body, our spiritual body. And it's a pleasure and an honor, and I love having these conversations. This is what I live for, so excited to really dive in.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you just said a whole mouthful very concisely. And I know from speaking with you that, your journey from the physical body to the overall integrative health of a person, of yourself, was not like an overnight thing.
Oh,
And I just want to, premise this. Even before we got on, I said this is a very important conversation, not to put pressure on you, but let me put pressure on you. And I, as a practitioner, work with so many women and so many men who have, including myself, even this morning, I'm like sitting here like, I need to be more healthy. And is that coming from self-love or from I wouldn't say hate, I don't hate myself, but, from sort of self-criticism, right? And so this body image, self-image, how we regard ourselves, talk to ourselves. I know there's a lot of talk and, about self-care and, self-love, but truly, I really want to get into what does that actually look like on the field, right? Like on the
yeah.
court, and really highlighting your story because you come from that space and you brought yourself to where you are today, and that took something. So for everyone listening, Sarah's an incredible force in this space, and I'd love to know. So tell us a little bit about like where you started.
I appreciate that question with just the reminder that no process is linear.
Hmm.
And for me, my story really begins when I was 8 years old. And I have this incredibly vivid memory of sitting in the school cafeteria after school at like a rehearsal or something and seeing a fifth grader across the way. And she was wearing a sports bra and she was sitting down. And when she was sitting, she had no roles when she sat. And so I thought to myself, well, I have roles when I sit. Why do I have roles and she doesn't? And that's really the first moment that really kicked off this recognition of my physical body in a way that was judgmental. And, I, a few years ago, went home to my mom's house and found a journal from when I was 8 years old. And so I assume that these two instances were somewhat related. I don't know how timely they were, but when I was 8 years old, I wrote in my journal, I'm starting a diet tomorrow. I really need to lose some weight.
Mm.
And from 8 years old all the way up through early 20s, like 21, 22, I did so many different diets. I did Weight Watchers, I did Jenny Craig, I did the Special K diet, I did these soup diets, I did anything that was an opportunity to change my body, I tried. And none of it worked. And what does worked mean, right? Like maybe I would lose a few pounds, or I'd be sticking to the plan, but then after a few days I'd fall off, and then I'd feel regret and I'd feel remorse, and then I'd start again tomorrow. But I was always starting from this place of regret and remorse, guilt and shame. And what I know now from my entire journey, here I am, 20 years later, essentially, is that our intention and the feeling in which we're starting any journey is going to be what brings us through that journey. And so if we're starting with guilt and shame and judgment, that's what's going to continue throughout. And ultimately, that's going to crumble because that's an unsettled foundation.
Mm.
And so when we can come from a place of, okay, what actually feels right to me? How can I do this from a place of supporting myself, of loving myself, and strengthening myself in all ways?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's really going to get us where we want to go.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And I love that. And back to when you were 8, who were the models around you? Who, what were your friends and family like, and where did you come from? Like, what was the support like around you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and actually, so I recently launched this 11-week body image healing group, and so when we're in week 2, where we're really diving into our body image stories, and something that came up a lot this week was, okay, yeah, like, well, where do those stories, where does your story even stem from before you could even consciously have your own story? And what was coming up was a lot of like moms and parents and things like that. And I grew up in a loving household. My mom never thought there was, I was perfect in her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, there was, she had her own weight issues when she was a kid. She had been through Weight Watchers. And so when I was expressing issues about my body, she, was empathetic in that way, is that she had been through that too. And Weight Watchers had been successful to her. So, so we went and we did it together. And it was, she was supporting me in what I was expressing I wanted. But, I always felt, even my childhood best friend, I was always comparing myself to her. She was taller, she was skinnier. And, here I was short and, a little chubby. And that comparison, that story really stuck with me so many years down the line. And, even leading up until recently, where a newer best friend, my best friend Danielle, who I traveled around the country with, it was always like she was to me like the body that I always wanted. And it was this point of like, okay, this is coming up again. Like, this is something that I need to address. So yeah, that's my roundabout answer to that question.
Yeah, I got it. So, and I relate, and I got chills as you were sharing that, because I remember going to Weight Watchers with my mom, and and it wasn't coming from a place of not being loved or being criticized. It was just trying to be supportive of what I wanted and going for. And there's such a convoluted thinking around what health looks like, and what those goals are like. I actually think that sometimes the body image talk is like the sex talk. It's like people go around it, when really kids would benefit maybe from more pointed focus around it. But we need to educate people how to do that, right? And a lot of that also comes from our own self-mastery of ourselves before we could do that with others. So that's what you're doing. Go ahead.
Well, I think that point of the self-mastery of ourselves before we can teach it to others is huge. And so when we think about body image and how much of a societal norm it is to struggle with the way your body looks. I mean, I've never met somebody, man or woman, however you want to identify. I've never met somebody who at least has never had a misconstrued perception of their body or has wanted to change their body. And so then that gets passed down. And so it's just this perpetuated cycle. But if we can learn it and we can stop it in our tracks, then we can start to teach it. And then that can spread, and then it can become the norm everywhere to just love your body, which is just this beautiful gift to live this life. But we're so caught up in all the other, for lack of a better word, bullshit. That is just,
social media is also not helping.
No, social media, mass media, all of these things, all of those things contribute to us individually, which then upholds it, which then brings it back into the media, and it's this cycle.
Yeah, I want to know more about your story because I know so much of it. I would love other people to too. But let's talk about the social media part for a second, because when I think about the young women that I work with, most of them share with me that they compare themselves to people on TikTok, or they compare themselves to their girlfriends who are much thinner, much taller than they are. And, they get told quite often, hey, why don't you wear more makeup? And, it would really highlight your features, and they become super insecure. And these are, not that I am the barometer to which someone should measure anyone's beauty, but to me, like, girls did not look like this when we were in middle school or high school. And they really are incredibly beautiful, aesthetically, from the inside out, beautiful women. And that doesn't matter, because in their perception, there's always another model. There's always something else to look towards. At the same time, before I have you respond, they also look at other people on TikTok who they say are more like them, and so it empowers them. So where is this healthy balance of what we ingest, so social media wise, and what would you say about that? Because it's acutely powerful today.
Well, the first thing that I want to share in response is I recently wrote a poem about exactly what you just shared about that comparison. And it's a very simple poem, which is, I wish my body looked like hers, she said. I wish my body looked like hers, she said. I wish my body looked like hers, she said. And it's this idea that we're seeing somebody else and we're saying, oh, I wish that I looked like her. I wish I was like her. But then that woman is saying, oh, I wish that I looked like her, and I looked like her. And it's just this ongoing cycle. And I think the first step, whether it's on social media or in real life, in life, is awareness and recognition that you're doing it. And getting really, really aware of, how is this making me feel when I am on TikTok, when I am on Instagram, and I'm seeing these kinds of things. What's happening internally? Where are my thoughts going? Where are my emotions going? How is that ultimately then impacting the rest of my day and how I move throughout my day? And then starting to ask, okay, well, how do I want to feel, right? If I want to feel empowered, then continue to follow those who are making you feel empowered, and simply unfollow the ones who are making you feel not good. And I think it's really as simple as that, but it takes, it's a little bit of discipline of saying, okay, this is what I know. This is what I know will be good for me. And let me just do this for myself. Like, that is self-care, is recognizing what is not feeding your own empowerment and getting rid of it. And it's as simple as an unfollow, like do an audit, a social media audit. And every person, and this, like, you can do this whether it be intentionally, if I'm going to take the next hour and this is going to be so I can go through and nitpick, or even just as you're scrolling, like if you find that something is making you feel not good, okay, cool, just right then and there, unfollow.
I love that. Everyone unfollow that and follow Sarah, because but you're a good model of that, because I follow you, obviously, and I love seeing, stuff on Instagram, and it's right there, Sarah's handle. And what I love is there an H, by the way? SARAH?
Yes, there is an H.
Okay, got it. What I love, and I'm going to fix that.
I didn't even catch it. Thank you.
Well, I caught it just now. Look at that. And I'm going to do it live because I don't want people to miss out.
Live edits, baby. Right
there
in
we go.
the mix.
Show. There it is. Magic.
That's
so what what I love about following you is I see your physical beauty and how healthy you are, and those moments that are, we all go through those moments, and you're honest about your moments, and it's like, oh, if Sarah goes through those moments, well, I give myself permission, but also what shows through is your energy. So it's like, what do I want to feel? If I'm ever down and I need like a boost, you're the one I go to on Instagram, because you're like always doing some and I just it has me beat in my body. And so I would say follow people who are, when you watch them, your energy elevates to another level.
right.
Rather than looking at like a static picture and saying I should look like that.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So tell us let's bring us back. And I don't know how much you want to share, but I know that there was a point in your life where you were doing a lot of body work and, really on that path where you thought you wanted a certain type of body, and you achieved it. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, like I said, 8 years old, started me off on the diet train. And then when I was 19, so going into my sophomore year of college, I started working with a trainer who was in the bodybuilding industry. And my sister, going back to models, right? My sister was in that world. She was in bodybuilding. She was a personal trainer. And so I started working, his name was PJ. Started working with PJ, and he put me on a bodybuilder's plan. Very regimented, very portioned out meals throughout the day, working out twice a day. And there was something with committing to working with him that kind of just like my mindset switched on. And I'm like, all right, I'm in this now. This is fitness, Sarah. And I became so disciplined, so committed to the demise of my mental health. And so as I was continuously leaning into this physical program and was getting results, I was losing weight, I was becoming stronger in the gym, I was looking better than I ever had. I was becoming more and more obsessed. If I was going to miss a workout, I would freak out. If I was going to maybe a restaurant, I remember an instance where I was with my mom and my family, and we were trying to figure out where we're going to go. And I had to find a place where I was able to get, exactly what I was going to be able to get. And it would cause anxiety, stress, anger, frustration in me that I then let out on my family. And then not only that, I would have my cheat meals once a week, Saturday night. So when I had my cheat meals, that was my one opportunity to eat whatever I wanted. It was the only time that I was allowed to eat just what I wanted. And so the cheat meal slowly but surely evolved into a cheat night where I would just stay up all night and binge everything that I could, because it was my only time throughout the entire week that I could eat what I wanted. And it got to a point where I would eat so much, I would feel so sick that I would make myself throw up. I wasn't eating to make myself throw up, but I was eating so much that I would feel so uncomfortable that the only way to relieve that was to make myself throw up. So I developed disordered eating 1000%. And then next morning, Sunday morning, wake up feeling physically not well, emotionally filled with guilt, shame, regret, remorse, all these things. So what do? Get back, go to the gym, work out a ton. And this cycle repeated and repeated and repeated.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, I became so reliant on my coach. I had no say in what I was doing with my body. I was glued, obsessed with him telling me what to do next because I was getting the results that I always wanted, this physical body, and he was giving me the answers. So anything he said would go. And to that, I put some really not good things in my body. I've never really shared this, but I took some supplements that were not healthy at all.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I moved up into when I was actually bodybuilding. And, you know, I took an estrogen blocker at some point because with bodybuilding, the look you want is hard cut, you know, and leading up to that, like I was taking really not good supplements, putting all these chemicals in my body.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, you're
but it
speaking the truth. I mean, people who
yeah,
are watching the replay, I mean, this is what happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's I was getting what I wanted. I wanted the physical body, right? And that was the goal. That's what I got. And at some point in time, I just started to recognize, okay, this isn't something's not right here. And I remember actually hearing about the phrase moderation, and this was in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
2013. And I hear the phrase moderation, and I remember thinking verbatim, wait, I can have a cookie on a Wednesday? That was my a true thought that I had because I was so conditioned that the only time I could ever have a cookie was a cheat night. And so this idea was so mind altering to me and appealing. Like, wow, that feels great. And so learned about moderation, started really recognizing, okay, these patterns, this obsessiveness, this binging, this making myself sick is not right, is not healthy.
Can I ask? So,
Yeah.
I just want to ask about the body. So, not everybody's journey, because I know many people in my life who do this and do it well, and are really loving this part of their life. So, not every journey is like this.
No.
Right. But this is a very typical journey for a lot of people that you're highlighting. And my question about the moderation is, what in that moment, because there are a lot of people that go through what you went through, and they unless they're being pushed or, suggested, or there's an intervention. But was there something within you that you can recognize was kind of knocking at that door already? Was it like you were looking for something? Was it what had you, turn the corner?
It's a really interesting question. Maybe subconsciously I was looking for something. When I found moderation, it was right around the time that I had started Fit University as a blog, my blog. And the idea there was just sharing how I was living healthy in college. And so I remember like my first blog post was about like the only way to get started is to do it. And the second blog post was find the time, create the time. And then the third post was about moderation. And that was the first time I ever heard of it. So I think I was starting to share my own thoughts and what I was moving through. And I think moderation kind of just found me in a sense, but I can't name right now, at least, anything that was pushing me towards that.
Well, whatever we put out, we get back. So
Right.
something about your energy and, what you were looking for was obviously drawing that in.
Yeah, right. Like I was putting out my blogs in an effort to help other people on their journey. So perhaps the universe was delivering what was
I love that.
me. Yeah. I like that too. It's a really beautiful way of thinking about it.
Beautiful. So go on. Moderation.
Moderation. Yeah. And so, I mean, I learned this phrase, cookie on a Wednesday sounds great. And I slowly started um, thinking about it more, and it just kind of, it's like when you think of something and then it starts to show up in other ways. I think it was one of those instances. Um, and I actually remember maybe like a month or two later, I met my what would become like 4-year long boyfriend. And he and I, we'd go out on Thursday, Friday night. And I think that was actually a really beautiful catalyst in helping me step into it, because Friday nights wasn't my cheat night. But because I was going out with him, I started to let myself be a little bit more lenient. And, then on Saturday morning, like, you know, let him, have whatever breakfast we were having instead of like my usual thing. So I think that actually helped me evolve into a bit more moderation. And then it was a long process of which felt almost like a battle, because my natural instinct that I had developed was restriction,
Mm-hmm.
was shame, was guilt. But so it was like I was feeling that physically, but my mind, what I was telling myself is, okay, this is uncomfortable, but moderation, just
Mm-hmm.
breathe, begin to
Mm-hmm.
practice this. And so my moderation practice was supported by uh, mindfulness, affirmations, I am statements, um, a little bit of meditation at that point. I mean, I had always been doing a lot of yoga, but I think the meditation and mindful eating became a huge piece. So really slowing down as I was eating and paying attention to, okay, when do I actually feel full when
Mm-hmm.
I'm eating this versus continuing to just binge because I could eat anything.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember one moment, and this could have been like a year down the line, maybe even 2 years down the line, where I was having breakfast with my mom out somewhere. And I ordered like this gigantic blueberry pancake, so good. And I remember uh, being so proud of myself, because at some point I was so cognizant of how I was feeling as I was eating. And when I felt full, which was like halfway through the pancake, because this pancake was like twice the size of my face, I pushed my plate away and I said, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And that moment was huge for me. It was like, I like to think about these little like aha moments or things that happen as like leveling up. You're in a video game. It's like you hit the coins and it's like ding, ding, ding. And for me, for me, that was one of those moments,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like this clearing of, oh, okay, I can do this. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in this journey, it's so important to give yourself the space to acknowledge and celebrate that,
Mm-hmm.
because that creates the recognition of self,
Mm-hmm.
the positivity, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to lead you into the next moment and the next moment. But if we don't give ourselves that time, then we just keep on going.
Yeah. My boyfriend says I go mm-hmm whenever I'm like yes, inside. So I find myself doing that with you a lot, like mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm. Because I was just working with a little girl, and she really leveled up in her journey. She's about 9 years old, and I said, let's celebrate. She says, what do you mean? I said, well, we're going to celebrate. She says, how? We don't have balloons. We don't. I said, no. We can just celebrate by being with ourselves, and let's just scream on the top of our lungs. She says, really? In this office? And I said, yeah, we're just going to do it with our bodies and our voices, and you're going to do a power move, and we figured out her power move, and
wow.
the giggles and the excitement from just learning how to celebrate with our bodies, right? How to celebrate
Yes.
ourselves and our accomplishment really does solidify our identity even more. And incredible, as you're like telling your story,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this journey that people go through with growth through struggle. And
Yeah.
you really are depicting this. You didn't just stay in the suffering. you really started to take yourself on and struggle with the meaning that you were making about why is this so important for me? How can I create, not just do away with it, but create something that works for me?
Right.
And that kind of journey and the struggle really leads you to where you are today. It's just incredible to hear you talk about it retrospectively, just kind of looking back. So, and where did all of that lead you? Because now you really champion, even before getting onto this call, I said, I really need to get my health in order because I haven't been eating, I was away and Thanksgiving and haven't been eating really well. And your first question was, well, how do you feel? And the truth is, my body isn't feeling as, good, physically. And so where does that question come from? How do you feel? Because that's not typically the question people ask. They say, oh, okay, do you need any help? Or I have a tip for you, or take this. So where does that mindset come for you?
Yeah. Well, feeling is everything because our feelings, our emotions are energy. And everything is energy. And when we think about creating and moving to where we want to be, we think about, okay, well, what's the energy that is? And I always ask the question of, at the end of, or at the beginning of any journey, whether it's a retreat or a conversation or a yoga class or anything, how do you want to feel at the end? Because, and Joe Dispenza talks about this, Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about this. It's this idea of thinking from the end, feeling from the end. So if we can tap into, okay, what will it feel like to have that thing? How can I begin to practice it on a daily basis? That is the energy, the momentum that's going to build and get you to where you want to go. It's like what we talked about earlier in this conversation of when I was starting my journey based on shame, guilt, judgment. That's what I'm going to continue to have versus from empowerment, love, and strength. And so when asking the question, how do you feel? Ultimately, that's the most important question in anything. It's how do you feel? How do you want to feel? Because that's ultimately all that everything is. It's just feeling. It's just energy. And so I have it's The Power of Intention, which is one of my favorite books.
Oh yeah. So good. And I can think of a couple of people in my life who have a hard time visualizing that, like how they want to feel and stepping into that, because a lot of Dispenza's work and a lot of the meditations are incredibly focused on, step into that reality.
Right. Feel it now.
Feel it now. Right. I love his voice. Like, what is it? Feel it. No, feel it. Right. See it.
Come on. Feel it. Go back.
I love it. And I can hear his voice in my head over and over. And it's just so almost like a lullaby, it can really like get you into this trance.
He's very powerful lullaby.
Very Zeus energy. It's amazing. But at the same time, like when people have a hard time visualizing how they want to feel because they literally feel kind of like quicksanded into this like current sensation. How do you guide them through that? What are a couple of tips that you can give?
It's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is take a few 3 to 5 deep breaths.
Okay.
Yeah. And breaths with sound, releasing sound. So like a big inhale in and then exhale.
Yeah.
Because our emotions, as said, our energy stored in our body, sound is energy. So when we can release sound, we're releasing that energy from our body. And so I always like to use breath and sound release as kind of a clearing mechanism. So like let's do a few of those to kind of just push out whatever it is. And that's the first step. And then it's before we get into the feeling how we want to feel, just thinking, what's one word to describe how you want to feel? And everybody can name that, right? I want to feel empowered. I want to feel happy. I want to feel peaceful, right? And so it's taking that and And then it might be thinking back to a time where you felt that. It
Mm,
might be, okay, visualize what's a scene that you can imagine that looks like that, even if you're not in the scene, right? If I think of peaceful, maybe it's somebody sitting on a beach. And so it's just starting to practice into it and not putting too much pressure on yourself of, well, I don't feel this, like I'm doing it wrong. And I
yeah,
think that's a big piece that gets in the way of this, I'm doing it wrong. It's no, you're actually perfect. You're right where you're meant to be.
yeah,
If you're not practiced in feeling the future, in a sense, it
right.
might not come easy to you the first time, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I love it. And let me throw a wrench in there. I hear
Please.
my clients in my head, and a lot of them will say, "I want to feel skinny. I want to feel skinny." And so
Ah,
even the beginning, right? And not taking for granted that we are not practiced in even identifying what it is that we want to feel.
right.
Right. And so feeling skinny is not necessarily underneath what they're looking for. And what I find is that a lot of people are sort of blind to, or they have a blind spot around, they don't know what it is that they want to feel. Even they think they know, but
Hmm.
really underneath that is, I want to feel accepted, I want to feel
Right.
joyous, right?
Right.
And so creating those, what you're talking about is, creating those opportunities to make it easy for yourself to feel joyous, accepted, loved,
Yeah.
self-love, things like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a really important notion that you just brought up of this, I want to feel skinny. Because skinny isn't a feeling, right? Skinny is a thing. It's a aesthetic. And so, and I'll notice this too. I'll ask people that I work with a question of, well, how do you feel? And they'll say, well, I feel like this might happen or that might, or they'll say what they're actually thinking versus what they're feeling. Our
Mm,
feelings are emotions. One thing I think Dispenza says this, thoughts are the language of the mind, feelings are the language of the body,
yeah.
which I just love. And so if we take this example of, I want to feel skinny, okay, what does that mean to you? Why is that important? Well, because if I feel skinny, this is often what I hear, right? And what I used to feel myself of, well, if I'm skinny, then I'll be attractive. Then people will like me and want to date me. Okay, well, why is that important? And just like continuously breaking down why. And ultimately, we're going to find out that it's not about being skinny at all. Exactly what you just said. It's about being accepted, loved, feeling valued, feeling seen. And so when we can get down to that, we can actually recognize, okay, how am I not seeing that within myself? How am I not practicing that within myself right now? And how can I start to?
Hmm. I love it. What are some things that you, Sarah, do? I know that you are the developer and creator of joyflow, which I've actually taken on every day this week in the mornings, and felt my body in preparation for our conversation. You really do bring that much joy into my life about you. And can you share with people a little bit of the origination of that? Because I think something like that is such a contribution. And just for everyone to know, I actually had the experience of having Sarah lead us. Where were we?
That was Dominican Republic, January 1st of this year.
That's right. So
Oh
I
my
went
God.
on a retreat, and Sarah was one of the facilitators where we met, and really being on that deck in front of the water and being on our yoga mats. And
I just got chills.
I know, so did I just now, right? It was just such a beautiful experience, and something very unique. So I'd love for you to tell people about it, because it was the epitome of being inside my body and being
Mm.
with others and experiencing that with them, and then watching them experience that with themselves because I peaked. That was kind of interesting as a voyeur. But tell us, what is joy flow?
So, joy flow is a practice of ultimately moving in a way that feels good for you. And it's a blend of yoga, ecstatic dance, and meditation. And we move through this process of just kind of, okay, first, like the yoga practice portion of it is just kind of tapping into the moment, really starting to tune into how is my body feeling? Where is my mind at? Yoga is bringing us here in union with the moment, with our breath. And then it evolves into more intuitive movement. So we begin to stand, we start to let our bodies just kind of move to the music, and we just start to let it happen. And then it gets bigger and we start to move into just dance and ecstatic dance. And it's just let your body just go. And what's so impactful about the intuitive movement and the ecstatic dance is that what we find is that when we start to let our bodies move in a way that's just unique to us, right? There's no guidance. I'm not saying reach your arms up overhead as you take your next breath. I'm saying move your arms however they want to move. And we can start to see the thoughts that come up of like, well, am I doing this right? Or what should I do? And these thoughts of maybe doubt or questioning or lack of self-trust or uncertainty, all these kinds of things. And then we can start to release that and start to step into just freedom of expression with the dance. And then we close it home with meditation and letting it like settle in and sit in, because it can be a really new practice, especially if you've never moved that way before, which it's not a usual thing for
Yeah.
us to do in our society. Right? It's like we do this certain thing. We go to a group fitness class, we do the squats, we do the bicep curls, and that's it. And we live our lives the same way. We do this, we do that, we do that. But if we can practice moving intuitively and moving in a way that just feels good and start to recognize the thoughts that come up along the way, we can start to bring that practice out of joyflow and actually into our everyday life and start moving in ways that feel good, speaking in ways that feel good, surrounding ourselves with people that feel good. So it's really a mirror of our life. And when we can practice using our body as a means of release and expansion, because our bodies hold everything, all those memories of shame and guilt and ways that I used to treat my body was still holding on to all of that. And so movement has allowed me to let it go, to shake it out, to,
You do it well. I mean, everybody should really follow you on Instagram, because if anyone needs a good boost of how to move your body, I mean, really, you have such a great way about that. And it's something that when I look at, I think I can do that too. That's within me as well. And I just finished Date with Destiny, Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny. And one of the days was a relationship day. And we had us do as women was to stand up and dance. One was a sensual dance and one was a like Moulin Rouge erotic kind of thing. And the idea, and it was funny actually, because that evening I was in like flamingo pajama pants and a big sweatshirt, and it did not feel Moulin Rouge-y, and it was interesting because there were men and women in the room. Sure. What was interesting was this dark and light essence that we as, feminine creatures, and by the way, feminine could be in a male and a female and anyone, right? But as women, as a woman, I was, dancing in a sensual way, in a more, raunchy, fun sort of way. And I bring this up because it can really also help us connect to our core essence, which is important, right? And when it comes to being in touch with ourselves. And when I think about all the things that I do, and serve, there's such a masculine energy associated with that. And, it impacts my ability to be in my core essence. And once I started to do that, it almost like opened up this thing for me, like a flower. And this time in my life when I was just playing and having fun and, not really caring what a hoot, what anyone thinks. So what do you say about that?
I say yes. No, it's so, I have so much to say about that. I think the first thing I'll reference is this concept you shared of being in the masculine energy, especially, that's our culture. It's work, work, work. It's go, go, go. It's strong, it's power, it's forceful, which has its time and place. And to tap into the feminine essence, that slow, that nurturing, that compassionate, that creation is also equally as important, right? The union is masculine and feminine. We need both. And we've been so conditioned to tap so much into the masculine, and we forget about the feminine, which is also what we are. And so that core essence that you talked about, it's exactly that. Letting your body move in these ways, whether it's sensual or raunchy or just childlike, all of these are all elements of who we are. Angry, like all of it. And when we can let our body express that, we are allowing ourselves to essentially experience the entire spectrum of what it means to be a human and to feel all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how beautiful and precious and a miracle is that?
Yeah.
And the more we can continue to tap into our core essence, the more we're living in our truth, the more we can create, the more abundance we can create, the more love we can feel for ourselves, the more love we can give out to other people and open ourselves up to receiving the love from other people.
That's right. I love it. One of the participants in a breakout during that event said, and people think I'm crazy because they keep saying it, but it's really what we're talking about. I want to, she said, really work on myself and get into my true self and my true essence, so that when my partner or my friend or someone in my life is not in theirs, I could be there for them. Because if we are not complete, and not that we're always 100% going to be at every moment, but if we're not aware of it and constantly keeping up with ourselves, everything becomes about us when someone else is not well, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes. And so, it's like so what you're really talking about is putting the oxygen mask on you first and really taking care of home before going out and taking care of others.
Exactly. Could not have said it better myself.
I love it. Sarah, what do you want? So one more question. I know I'm squeezing the lemon here because so I'm making lemonade. So my question is, and I'm thinking about, what do you tell parents? And I'm actually thinking about someone very close to me who I have not spoken to in a very long time, and I'm getting choked up, who is actually related to me, who deals greatly with, body image, and then also very disordered eating, right? And so a lot of our, I would say, relationship in life has been broken in many ways because of this. I was very young when I tried to support and got a lot of, backlash, and, nobody really knew how to deal with it. And, it is where it is. But what do you say to people who have loved ones, friends, coworkers, whomever in their life who are experiencing habits, lifestyle choices that are, by our definition, detrimental, or even to them detrimental, or maybe not healthy? And how can we support those people? What do they need to hear? What don't they need to hear? What is the thing to do?
It's a great question. And the thing that's coming to mind is, I believe that at the root of all of this is just a desire to be seen. And what we can do most is hold space for those people and not put our judgments on them.
Or fear and anxiety.
Or fear and anxiety, absolutely. Even if you are fearful and anxious of how they are living. And there's, to go back to this idea of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? It's okay, how can you move through that so that way you can show up to them in full love and support. It goes back to intention, right? Because that energy is going to translate. And so I think, asking, I think, to go back to that question of asking, how do you feel?
Yeah.
you know? And I think, you know, we oftentimes ask a lot of questions or make observations about how somebody looks. Well, this is actually something that I had stopped doing a long time ago. When I see somebody, whether or not I have recognized that their body has changed in some capacity, even if I might notice it, I don't say anything, because what benefit is that doing?
Mm.
And
I love that you just said that, because I just had a client. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just had
no,
a client tell me, young teenager, that when people comment that she has lost weight and looks great, even then she makes meaning of, well, what does that mean about when I looked a different way?
exactly.
What does that mean? And so we never truly, what is the intention?
Right.
What is the purpose? Yeah.
Right. So stop, you know, stop making comments about people's bodies is
Mm,
flat out what I'd say in general. Good, bad, doesn't matter. Stop making comments about people's body. Start asking people, how do you feel? How is your heart?
mm,
Can I support you?
mm-hmm,
And I think that's all. That's not all, but I think those are the baselines of what I would offer,
mm-hmm,
um, in terms of showing up for those kinds of people.
mm-hmm. And so much is coming up for me, because I'm thinking of people who are in those worlds where body, how you look, and every sort of centimeter counts.
Yeah,
It is all about that. And so
yeah,
we're up against a lot, but I'm so happy that you are in the field and doing this work, because it's so important. And I'm
mhm.
waiting for you to create a program for teenagers so I can.
It's coming. I was talking to somebody else about it recently. I mean, I already have this one program for adults, so I feel the teenagers program is coming soon.
Amazing. Anything I can do to help, let me know.
Yeah.
And how can people reach you, Sarah?
Through either Instagram, Sarah J. Gaines, or my website, also sarahjgaines.com. I'm super easy to find. I have a contact form on my website, or you can DM me on Instagram, or just, pop in, say hello, ask a question. Here to help in all ways. This is a topic that is so, my heart just explodes of just like, we need to share this with everybody, because we're so much more than our bodies. And if we can just recognize that our bodies are these incredible gifts to experience life with, and just honor it with
And
nourishing food and dance,
yeah,
everything else will fall into place.
absolutely. And as I say, our bodies are probably the least interesting thing about us.
I
And
brought that up in our group on Wednesday night as well.
you did. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, really, there's so many more interesting things about our heart, our souls, our
Our
creativity.
ideas.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I don't know anybody who said, what did Thomas Edison's body look like when he, you know what I mean? Like, who cares? Anyway, I love you.
Oh,
Um,
I love you. This was so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for contributing to everyone, and we will talk soon.
Sounds good.